Scrimptcast, Scrimp Podcast, 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 Scrimptcast, Scrimp Podcast.
Welcome everyone to the only podcast that will tell you the truth about NASA. Space is fake, and NASA is setting up actually a child trafficking pizza shop on Mars. That is the main goal. Whatever. We'll do something.
Oh, that's the intro, bro. Because
All right.
I hit record and you started doing that, and that's the intro, brother.
All right, that works. So I guess we're gonna talk about Destiny's 5 question for socialists today, right?
Sure. Yeah, we are gonna talk about that.
A lot of these questions are stupid.
Well, they're really loaded. I don't know. This is just the one I got off his little Reddit community. I don't know if he's modified them at all, but I mean, some of them are so loaded, it's insane. So we'll go through them all. I guess I'll read them. Number 1, how much violence is acceptable to implement your socialist system? Number 2, how do we decide which businesses are allowed to exist in a socialist society without allowing private capital investment? Number 3, is any investment allowed into a socialist society for the expansion of business in a socialist society? My bad. 4, how are labor markets determined in a socialist society? 5, how do we calculate which goods and services a nation needs without the commodity form? I guess we'll start with, you guys want to start with 5 or 1?
I think we should start with 1 because I think a lot of things, like if you actually implement a socialist society, it kind of answers some of these questions in a way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but
assuming that you're basing your social society off like any like Marxist principles, yeah.
All right, so who wants to start with number 1? I'll restate the first question. How much violence is acceptable to implement your socialist system?
Well, I would say, if you look at like Russia, the Russian Revolution, like the revolution itself was actually not very bloody. Like it was, at the beginning, right? Like the administrative kind of change of power where like the collective was like, okay, no, like, we're going to be in power now. We're against the status quo, essentially. Like it's essentially the reaction of power usually that is like bloody. It's like the Civil War was bloody. So like power, like being like, well, you can't, like, power reacting is what generally causes a lot of the bloodshed, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, so my initial answer to it was all the violence.
Yeah, I had
all the violence.
I had that same response, and you made a good point when we were talking about this before the show, Greg. It's like how much violence already exists to maintain the capitalist order, like that goes totally fucking ignored. You know what I mean?
It's almost like you'd have to even, like, it's begging the question. You'd have to ask this question in answer to that is how much violence is acceptable for you to continue this capitalist system? Like,
I completely agree with that. But also the question also is like insinuating, like the revolution would be like this bloody, terrible thing, when I actually don't think it necessarily would.
Here's the implicit fucking thing that is in the question is like, if you're going to, let's say, take over someone's property, that is violence, right? According to people who are asking this kind of question. So, that's,
So if you get into the expropriations, right? The bloodshed I don't think would be that bad. Like people aren't gonna, like, it's not gonna be incredible loss of life. And then if you're talking about the violence of like people losing, like not being not being the bourgeois anymore, like people becoming, working class and getting, like essentially the expropriations, like that stuff doesn't necessarily have to happen at gunpoint, really. And in fact, a lot of the failures of the Soviet Union, I think, were that, like, especially under Stalin, that a lot of the expropriations, like, especially like the kulak stuff, did happen kind of forcefully and at gunpoint, and a lot of time, you know what I mean? Stuff like that.
It was excessive,
like,
yeah.
And
you wouldn't need to do that. Like, I think you could almost incentivize de-petty bourgeoisifying or a de-bourgeoisification. Like, obviously if you have a revolution, you would want to start early, like on the big bourgeois, and be like, okay, obviously you guys can't be billionaires anymore, and try and like get rid of that in the most like easy way where it's not going to cause like physical violence or like pointing a gun at someone and be like, okay, no, we're just taking Amazon, or you know what I mean? Like it would be more like, you know, you're going to willingly like do it or else.
Yeah, So there's implicit violence there, but I just want to make this like point, which is that
there has to be implicit violence. I think that's the entire violence that's acceptable. The implicit violence, like, and if they react
because of the implication,
like
they
there
won't
has
say
to be
no
the implication,
because of the
and
implication.
there has to be also the implication, but there also has to be like the genuine, you know, you have to carry it out. You have to, you know, it can't just be an empty threat. You have to actually be willing to carry out the violence again that might be required, but not. And I'm not saying that that's going to be like an incredible amount of violence either. Like it just, you know, it's going to be people that are viciously defending.
If you're talking about a revolution, you're there could be violence there. You can't just be like it's all going to be like, you know.
Yeah, but it's not going to be violence that's like brought upon. Like it's not going to be violence that the working class is bringing upon itself. It's like you have to think of it like capitalism is essentially, if you look around, like naturally
it's already
kind of
violent.
Yeah, and it's already violent, but it's like completely outliving it's like the productive forces have developed as far as they can essentially under the system. Like the system itself is like having a crisis like every handful of years. It's completely, we've outlived it. So, but like the people at the top, like they're not just going to allow it, like the next stage of humanity to happen. Like there has to, like, we have to like kind of make it happen.
They're not going to allow it to happen. And I want to make the point that this question is incredibly fucking loaded because the entire capitalist system is based on violence right now. Like, how much violence are we willing to implement to have a socialist system? We can talk about that, but let's talk about how much violence. If me and a few people found a house that no one is living in, we just moved into it, right? No one's living in it. We just moved into it, but we're not going to pay the person who owns it, right? What's going to happen is we're going to have the forces of the state call down upon us with guns to forcefully, violently remove us, right? So
and that's for doing something totally peaceful, like entering an empty home.
So like how much, so like you're gonna ask me how much violence are we willing to accommodate to have a more just and
look, I'll put it this way. How violent is it to actually shake off your chains? You know what I mean? How violent is, let's say, resisting arrest compared to 7 men with guns pointed at your head? Like
and then
murdering you potentially. Yeah. It's a matter of what's the word I'm looking for? I don't want to say severity. It's a matter of scale. It's a matter of scale when it comes to the violence. It's also shaking off your chains versus putting people in chains, which is what capitalism does. Yeah.
There's also the question of like if everyone in a factory decided that what they were just going to stay in the factory and just they were going to sell the products and run the factory, right?
They're going to cut out the middleman.
What would happen was that would be the beginning of a socialist type of I'm not going to say revolution because I'm just talking about like a small scale. That would be like the beginnings of a socialist idea that you're building upon. That would be, in my mind, completely peaceful, right?
Well, the only violence is going to come from reaction.
The only violence is it depends on your definition of violence. Like you're taking over something that someone says is theirs. And
well, I'll put it this way. Let's say you do that, you're gonna
that though.
All right, go ahead.
And then you're taking over something someone says is theirs. Now, the real violence is going to come in what happens when they're going to enforce their ownership.
Yeah, right? The cops are the arm of the state, essentially, like they're the armed bodies of the state that like are going to come and enforce private property law, enforce capitalism. That's essentially what cops do. Is when it boils down to it, they are the armed men, the armed bodies that enforce private property law and capitalism.
So, like, if you want to say that taking back, or not taking back, I guess, taking over the means of production, or even like the resources that have been privately held, if you're taking them over, if you're going to say that's violence, I would say that can be violence according to your definition. But like, let's look at the degree of violence here. It's like, we're going to just take over this oil well or something, right? And you're going to send in a army of armed people to come beat the shit out of us and murder us. Like, really, who's being more violent in this situation?
Right. Correct.
So yeah, I think that question is complete bullshit.
Yeah, it's a bullshit question because it's like you said, it's extremely loaded. It ignores the violence that
inherent in capitalism.
Inherent in capitalism. It's like you were talking about, like oil fields, for instance. Like what kind of violence had to happen for the people who own the oil fields now to own them?
Yeah,
like there was a violent capture of those resources, and just like the creating the factories, what violence had to occur for those factories to function in the way that they do? You know what I mean? Like, when people were trying to unionize factories, unionize mines, what were they met with? They were met with extreme violence from fucking privatized thugs and police. Period. That's historical.
Even just if you're going to call taking over the means of production peacefully or whatever, what I would call peacefully as violence, you could talk about, there's kind of an inherent violence in capitalism without even introducing the army or police.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Where you either sell yourself to these places, sell your time and your life to these places, or you live on the street and starve and die. Right. Now, if taking over the places where you work is violent, surely letting people just starve and die on the streets is some type of violence, right?
So that begs the question of, like, what exactly does destiny mean? Because I don't think that's what, because
trap.
It's a trap. Of course it's a trap. But I mean, when he was talking to Wolf, he kept trying to one up him, like catch him in these like weird things. Like, so Wolf gave the 3 different definitions of socialism. So there was like state socialism, like USSR. Then there's market socialism, and then there's like democratic socialism. And Wolf is of the second variety, the market socialist variety. And he was like, well, you're gonna have to have a state eventually to protect those gains, or something like that. And it's like, well, you can't shift the goal. So I think he's more afraid of like a Bolshevik style revolt, even though that's not even, as Jared has said, wasn't entirely violent in its form. It was a reaction that created the violence, the overwhelming violence.
I don't even know if that is like, I think that the primary goal of this is to like say, well, you want to initiate violence. Like, that's the entire goal of this question, because it's like put out there in a way where it's like, you know, well, you want to do all this crazy violence. I've never heard a socialist actually talk about,
dude, socialists. Socialists
that they don't say the fact that I just said, which is that it is there's an inherently violent system in private property and capitalism already. Like, how much, I've never heard anyone say that to him. So I don't know.
I think that, that's an absolutely good point. And that's like immediately what I thought of. And like, we're already living, the world that we have right now is already extremely violent. He just isn't he isn't the one who receives the violence, so he is able to ignore it.
Right. You know and then in a socialist system, he might be on, the receiving end of the quote unquote violence, because he
wouldn't be on he wouldn't receive any violence. I think people in the position like Destiny are more concerned that their life of absolute comfort, like he doesn't, what is he doing? He's not toiling, bro. He talks on Twitch and YouTube Live, and that's what he gets his living from. I mean, and that's fine, and that's totally fine if that's what you do. But if you're gonna do that and you're gonna disparage the people who don't have that kind of comfort, the vast majority of people living on planet Earth, and say that, oh, any push towards socialism is inherently violent, that's dog water. You know what I'm saying? That's bullshit.
It would be. It's almost like we go back to before the Civil War, and when we ask abolitionists, we ask them how much violence is acceptable to implement your abolition of slavery.
And I'd say the only answer is the answer that John Brown gave.
As much as we need.
Yeah,
really.
Exactly.
Like, because the system of slavery is already violent. So
you're exactly right.
Fucking need, dude. And I don't really want to drop a ton of names. We talked about Richard Wolff, but he tried the same thing with Caleb Maupin, who I don't agree with in many ways. And Maupin replied to it with like, oh, I see what you're trying to do. You're trying to corner me and say I'm violent. And it's like, just own it, dude. Like, I don't know. Yeah, it's possible that.
I mean, if you're upturning a system, there is a implicit violence that might occur there. It's not what we want. The violence isn't desirable.
Especially when you fucking define violence as like casting off your chains and taking back
your life.
So yeah, socializing something that should have never been privatized in the first place. Like, I don't know. Like, what right really do oil companies have to just own the part of land and the resources of the earth that they say they own and then sell? It just, I don't know.
It's mind-boggling, bro. Huh. You got anything to add, Jared?
Honestly, no. I think we've wrapped question 1 pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, if we got any capitalists out there who want to come on, we'll be happy to have you on, and you can tell us how our system is way more fucking violent than yours, and we can talk about that. But I think, yeah, that's just kind of a silly question. So,
if you're a capitalist, you'd have to have a factory or a business.
Yeah, if there's any factory owners listening, any owners of massive corporations, like if the CEO of McDonald's wants to come on, he's welcome to.
We can dig up Ray Kroc. Someone can puppeteer his corpse.
But all right. So question 2: how do we decide which businesses are allowed to exist in a socialist society without allowing private capital investment?
Private capital.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like go back to the question of revolution. Neither of those things are going to be necessarily still applicable. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, like, how do we decide which businesses? I think maybe you.
It just sounds like he doesn't know what socialism is.
Yeah, like, you might want to use like maybe the word firms or the word institutions.
I mean, you could have a business. I mean, I guess I see what he's saying. Like, his language is kind of, again, loaded, so that's creates kind of a problem. But obviously, the firms that will exist will be like, you go back to Marx. The things that we need will be the firms that will first be the ones that exist. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's obvious.
I would say, really, I mean, there's tons of different views for socialism, but I would say all of them are allowed to exist. I don't know why. Like, the only thing that wouldn't be
permitted.
Well, even then, the only reason it wouldn't be permitted is because after a socialist revolution, where the workers, like, if we had a socialist revolution and we had a ton of areas where we had workers like owning the means of production and controlling them, if you wanted to then start a capitalist type of business model where you exploit the shit out of people, you just wouldn't be able to find those people to work for you. You know, like, the reason that people work for jobs under capitalism right now is because if they don't, they like starve to death. They can't live. You know what I'm saying?
It's the implicit violence in capitalism that we just talked about.
Yeah. So if we have a socialist system set up, right, where we have the means of production owned by the workers or socialized to an extent, whichever way you want to do it, and then you want to start a place where the workers are paid very low wages and you just profit off of that, I think you would be allowed to do that. I just find it hard to believe that anyone would want to work there instead of in like the union run factories or whatever. Like,
right. Why would anyone want a post revolution socialist revolution? Why would they want to go back to the toil that they just escaped? You know what I mean? It's
yeah,
like
I could
it's like
see why
would
someone,
you like it's like go back to the slave scenario. If are you gonna go? Is a slave gonna go running back to their slave holder after they're freed? No, unless
well, like,
unless
yeah,
the
in some case, like if it was
unless the
so bad,
alternative was so
yeah,
bad, right? But
yeah.
I you'd be hard pressed to find that. And if you were going to argue that, you'd be treading on some kind of sus waters, you know.
And also in that situation, like sometimes when slaves they did want to go back to their masters.
Yeah, it was because the fucking
because it was,
factories were so miserable.
or also because the conditions after slavery were made so bad for people who looked like they used to be slaves that it was so hard to live in the society that was created by it. Or what I'm trying to say is that white slave owners and white people, they really tried to make it so that situation was so bad that it made slavery look good afterwards, right? So
yeah, and I
I
imagine that same thing would happen post socialist revolution.
Yeah, they'd attempt to, yeah.
And that is again where the implicit violence would happen in, you know what I mean, in a socialist revolution. It wouldn't be this to implement a socialist revolution wouldn't be, oh, we're going to create violence so that we can get our needs met. No, it's we're going to get our needs met, and when after we get those needs met, the violence is going to come from the people who don't want to change and have a socialist society.
Right. And then the second part of that is you know, how would are allowed to exist without allowing private capital investment. I think that he actually kind of restates this question later, but it's like you don't really need private investment in order, like there's ways to invest in things that are not private. So
yeah, you know, like, yeah, the whole point is to abolish private property. So
yeah, I mean there are communes existing right now, and they don't, like, you know, they invest in a way that allows their commune to thrive. It's not about
they invest through not antisocial means. It's not exploitative. That's the whole thing.
Like the whole point of private investment under capitalism is that you give them some money under the hope that you will just make a ton more back, right? Yeah. So that's antisocial, really. Like there's no
other way to say it. It's antisocial.
It'd be more democratic, right? Like the way that like investment, like what, like we would know what we need investment in as a society, because like it's the actual worker. Like it would be workers who are part of these councils who are like making decisions. So like it's people that are like at the ground level, whereas in our system it's more like the hierarchical kind of like system of like managers kind of makes them out of touch with the actual like ground level work itself. So they're making like these decisions that are like off. So I just think it would be better because the workers themselves would be like, oh, for example, like, you know, I don't know exactly too much about it, but I imagine for like farming, like you're a farmer, you're like, okay, well, you know, we need 1,000 tractors or whatever, and we need to increase farming 20% to get like XYZ. Like, you know what I mean? Just do it like and you'd have councils, you'd have meetings where you like talk about it with the other farmers, and they're like, okay, well, we need, you know, 2,000 tractors over here, and blah blah blah.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. And also, there's like a byproduct of private capital investment that, like you started to say it. I think it was like when you ask like the people what they need, right? And we all come together and we figure out what we need. We're getting what we need according to what the people say we need. Under like private capital investment, you have people investing into things that nobody needs. We're just speculating, right? That happens all the fucking time. So
that's the basis of fucking modern capitalism, is finance capitalism.
We'll just even talk about the housing market. Like people invest into like property and in land ownership and housing just to use that to exploit people so they have to work less, right? And they can gain money off of that. That is useless to society. There's no real value happening there, right?
The only value that is happening there is to the people who are doing the investing. You know what I mean? That's the only value created.
So like
not even created.
you've just added another layer of so under capitalism you sell your labor, your boss takes a huge chunk of that and he puts that towards his profit, right? So you get a wage which is less than what you make. And then on top of that, now since all the houses are bought by people who have more money than you, now you are paying rent to another person who is also cutting off a part of your labor and taking it for themselves. Like it's just useless. So
yeah. So the answer to number 2 is
there would be investment.
There would be no capital investment in a socialist system. Like, how fucking stupid is
there
this
would
guy?
be investment. Like
there
you
would
can
be
invest
investment, but it's not private capital investment. The whole fucking thing that we're fighting for is to get rid of capital investment. We want social investment. It's so fucking simple.
You wouldn't even need it because like the productive forces are so advanced nowadays. It's like, you know what I mean? Like the capitalism is kind of the thing that's holding us back. You know, the profit motive. Like for example,
we're actually going to get into that in later questions. I was kind of you go on though. For example,
the pandemic. It's like if you look at it, like why have we not from the very beginning just like immediately been like, okay, as a society, like, okay, we need masks, right? So like, let's make a few mask factories or whatever, use our resources,
like convert factories,
get these masks produced, take them, like use our massive like shipping infrastructure to like get them out to our citizens, like set up places everywhere, like get them to the workplaces. Like, you know what I mean? Like, because we have
it should be so easy.
The capability. We have
the capability. It's just not very profitable.
Yeah, it's because we have an entirely anti-social system. That's the whole thing.
You can like Jared just said, you could fucking go to your store I can go to my store in Michigan and buy grapes that were picked like a week and a half ago from like Mexico or some shit, or like Bolivia or something. You know what I'm saying? Like we have this huge infrastructure, like Jared was saying, that is being used only for profit and not for like the needs of our society. It's insane.
Well, yeah. Well, I was going to say another thing, like just because this is kind of off topic, but like so much of the produce that we do import is just totally wasted because they're trying to maximize the profit. They're not trying to maximize the use or efficiency. So that's totally fucking stupid.
If it's not profitable, right? So if it's not profitable, if you can't sell it, you just throw it away. There's no incentive. You've spent all this fucking money and you built this huge infrastructure, all this labor. You've shipped this shit over here, right? And then if you can't sell it in an amount of time for a profit, you don't feed people with it. You just throw it in the trash. Like
fucking ridiculous.
Yeah.
So this is kind of what we're talking about is kind of related to number 3, which is any investment allowed in a socialist society for the expansion of a business?
Yeah.
I feel like yeah. yes, there is, of course.
It's just not. It's not going to be private investment for a profit. You can, dude. How can someone even ask a question like that? The government is investing in shit that. The United States government right now invests in shit all the time that's not for a profit.
Right.
It's for killing people for the most part, but they're investing into it. There's no profit motive, right?
I mean, well, there is a profit motive in the military industrial complex, but yeah.
But not in the way that you would think about it for like you.
Well, no, there's capital there, there's profit to be made in the military industrial complex. But yeah, I understand what you're trying to illustrate.
If your government is if you're gonna sink 500 million into a new fighter jet or something, you're not at the end of the day on your little
your spreadsheet,
your receipt or your spreadsheet, it's just gonna be negative 500 million for the fighter jet or whatever, right?
Oh yeah, you're not trying to turn a profit by creating that. Yeah,
like what you're doing is you're investing that much. The people who get the profits out of that are the people who benefit from you taking over the oil facilities in another country, and then they get to build. So like Halliburton is reaping the profits. The United States government is getting shit from that. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So
Correct.
that's already an investment that is for the expansion of some, like it's a non-capitalist investment.
Well,
really.
it's even like water treatment plants. You know what I mean? That's I feel like is a better, probably a better example.
Well, I was just saying, there's all kinds of these things.
Well, but I'm saying
NASA,
like a water treatment
shit.
plant, they're not turning a profit off that. You know what I mean? I mean, they might be actually, but when it started, it was just literally for the good of the nation, of the people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now it's shit is all privatized, so it's kind of a bad. There's not a lot of examples
Like,
right now because everything is
honestly,
privatized.
I even think that this fucking number 3 question is just like, was there any thought put into that at all? Like I don't know. Is there any investment allowed? Yeah, there's investment allowed. It's just not the kind that you're thinking of. I don't know. It's just really stupid. That is actually a really stupid question. I don't understand at all what point is trying to be made here.
Yeah, for the expansion of business. So I don't know what he's talking about, if he's talking about business or if he's talking about commerce, because commerce is different. Because in socialist society, you'd still have commerce, you'd still have kind of like currency well, in my opinion, commerce would become even crazier, right? Like it would be in the future, right? So we'd have like we'd actually instead of our malls being crumbling, like we'd actually have like nice super malls with stores that you would go with, and you'd actually have enough money to get things that you want.
Yeah, and we'd have at least like 3 or 4 statues of me.
We have an abundance. We have an abundance of consumer goods, right? Like so, and that's all stuff that's just like sits there until someone buys it.
I think what he's trying to get at here is like, okay, under capitalism, a person will invest a certain amount of money and they'll start a business, right? Then they'll siphon off the productivity of the workers of that business, and they'll take that profit, they'll use some of it for them to live, and then they'll reinvest that profit to expand their business.
Right, but
he's asking like, would that happen under socialism? It's like
it might happen, but it might be the state investing in small businesses. Like if you're a shoemaker and you need a fucking, if you need a stipend or something because like for whatever reason, maybe you could get investment in that way. It just might not be it'd be a social investment from the state as opposed to from a bank or from a lender,
like a single person who would fucking profit off of it. Like obviously things are going to need to expand as your society grows. So yeah, there's going to be investment that leads to the expansion of firms that are needed, So like, let's say we need our population grew by 2%. So now the people who make shoes for those people need to grow by 2%. Like, yeah, it will happen.
Yeah, like a socialist state would then invest into shoemakers.
Yeah, it would not be some private banker somewhere, Yeah,
speculating on it. Yeah.
I guess we can move on to number 4 then, unless you guys have anything else to say about that.
You got anything, Jared, or did we cover it?
No, I think that you guys got it. Yeah, the state would probably do a lot of that, and it would just be based on need,
like an actual social need instead of a fucking like a profit motive. That's the whole thing.
And I would also even just throw in there, because I'm a bit of an anarchist, that you don't even need a state to do that. I mean, you can, it depends on your definition of state, but you don't need like a bureaucratic like system of like a parliamentary bureaucratic system and then a military and a police force to enforce things. You don't really need that to just expand business, dude.
Well, not necessarily a centralized one, but that's a totally different
I don't know. I just want to say you don't really need the state to do that. There's a lot of different ways you can think of to do that.
Right.
Yeah.
So what's number 4?
How are labor markets determined in a socialist society?
You want to lead this one off, Jared?
I don't necessarily understand a lot of the questions, so I need to like look up what he means essentially by like labor markets. Like,
Yeah,
or
so
like think
a
about
lot of the
question
questions are
more.
kind of fucking sketchy, really.
How are labor markets determined? So like he's talking about like where to allocate people.
Well, like because in one sense, depending on what type of socialist system we would have, there may not be labor markets at all. So
That's the whole thing. It's like what like where are you gonna allocate the fucking labor in like a post scarcity socialist utopia? Fucking nowhere. But then again, if you're talking about like the primary stages of socialism where we're like getting out of directly out of capitalism, probably exactly the labor markets are going to be determined by the social needs that need to be met. You know what I mean?
I actually think that we should tie this one and the next one together into like one question, because you gave a pretty good answer to me when we were talking about it before, Mike, for the next one, which I think could tie into this one. Is like so 4 is, how are labor markets determined in a socialist society? And then 5 is, how do we calculate which goods and services a nation needs without the commodity form?
Right.
So the answer that I've heard not only from Mike but from other people when I was talking to them or watching videos is we could use an AI to do these things, right? And the point that I want to make about that is that most of the fucking decisions in a lot of like let's say Amazon, right? Amazon isn't just relying on pricing and commodity form or whatever he means by that to decide what they need to stock in their warehouses. They're using an AI already to determine what people will want and will buy. So they already have it in those areas. You can order something and get it in like the next morning from Amazon is because they already are prepared for you to be buying that.
Yeah, the difference with Amazon is that they're using an algorithm to push certain products potentially,
but not even that
because of the profit motive. But that's not even what we're talking about. We're talking about
they're pushing things too, but also without pushing them, they're just using an AI and an algorithm to figure out what
who needs
people
what, where,
who needs what and where, and then they put it there.
Right, and that's what
they're already doing that. So
I got into an argument with another leftist before where he was like, fuck Amazon, people should just go to the library for books. And I'm like, yeah, but the infrastructure that Amazon created, if not connected to the profit motive would be so liberatory. It's insane because you can have anything that anyone needs anywhere at a moment's notice, essentially. And the left needs to embrace that kind of like for lack of a better word, like techno utopianism, because we can do that. The only thing stopping it is the profit motive.
Yeah, they're they're already doing, like, when you talk to capitalists in some ways, they're like, well, the reason that we know who needs what where is because of the monetary system. And it's like, that was the case like 100 years ago or whatever, but the way we know what people want, where, and when is not just from the monetary system anymore. They know already. Like, the algorithms are, sometimes there's like hiccups and shit, right? So but that happens under capitalism.
There'd be more. There'd be less hiccups now than there would be like in like older communist states. You know what I mean? Where they were doing everything by hand.
Yeah. Well, it's like even under capitalism, like if I want something unexpected and I order, like if I'm buying my 4th case of lubricant, right, to jerk off with, it's already there. They can deliver it to me the next day. But if I get something unexpected, like maybe I order a girlfriend, now that might take 3 weeks. You know what I'm saying? There's already hiccups there. So, right. Yeah, I don't.
You got anything to add there? Because we kind of took it in a certain direction that might have been a little bit more utopian. But
Dude,
what do you think? I don't think it's utopian either, because the like I said, the infrastructure is already there. It just needs to be put in the right hands. What do you think, Jared, for those questions? If you don't remember.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think this guy, Destiny, is idealist. And like, he's just, he doesn't think,
I don't think he's an idealist. I think he's a fucking
Materialist.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, he's an idealist compared to a materialist because he's not looking at what the actual material forces are. We already have the technology to be able to determine where the labor needs to be, for what, when. You know what I mean? Like, we already know. So, like, shifting the hands of who controls the levers of production and distribution isn't a huge leap. You know what I mean?
It's really not. It's like the main like the main thing about capitalism that pretty much every single socialist agrees is like the main problem we need to address with capitalism is that a minority of people are just siphoning off the productivity for themselves for like no real reason. There's no reason that needs to happen.
There's no moral imperative. There's nothing. There's not even
like a practical imperative. Like, really, why? There's no reason that they need to have all the productivity amassed at their fingertips.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I agree with you. Or the value.
The value, yeah. And there's no reason that they're like a lot of times when you talk to capitalists, they'll be like, well, those people are just getting paid what they're worth, right? Like, we don't like what would we do if that was true? If Jeff Bezos and people like him, or like the people who own Walmart or whatever, were getting paid what they're worth, what would we do as a society when these people die? They die all the fucking time, dude. Right?
Not even
if
that.
They're so fucking valuable that they are worth
like kings and
$1 trillion.
It's like the new kings and queens.
Yeah. If they're so valuable that they're worth being the richest person in the entire world, then you'd expect that when they die, we would not be able to go on. Obviously, they're not as valuable as they're getting.
Well, the thing is that somebody who is a fan of capitalism doesn't say that they don't believe in the labor theory of value anyways, so that's a null point. They're not gonna
they do say that shit though. They say you get paid what you're worth.
They do say that, but that's somebody like I don't think that somebody like Destiny would say that. I think
he definitely would, dude.
He does he really think that Jeff Bezos is worth like literally thousands and thousands of dollars a second?
I've heard him say
he's putting forth thousands of like thousands of dollars worth of labor a second.
Yeah, someone asked him that question, like something like that, and he was like, "Well, he must be worth that much. Obviously, it takes a lot to be running a business like Amazon, right?" And it's like
where you make more in a second than one worker in a factory does in a month.
Yeah, where you are just like by chance because you like started a bookstore. And
I mean, let's give him the benefit of the doubt. He did come up with the infrastructure and the idea. Like,
dude, no, he didn't.
Okay, go off.
Okay, look, I'm gonna recommend a little bit of an anarchist book for people. It's called The Conquest of Bread. Kropotkin talks about it. All right. He did not create those systems. He
monetized,
profited off of them. There's tons and tons of people who've been working under him from the beginning. That the creation of Amazon has been created by tons of nameless people who we will never know about. It's been for years. People have been improving it and making it better. Jeff Bezos has not been doing that, right? He hasn't been inventing the algorithms. He hasn't been designing the websites. He hasn't been making the trucks. He hasn't been increasing the productivity in any way, dude. So this is like countless nameless, faceless people have contributed to this, and he gets all the credit for it at the end of the day. That's bullshit. He didn't really do that. This is like my Barack Obama thing. You didn't build that. You didn't build that, dude. Lots of people built that. It's an entire organization of people. He didn't.
That happens a lot in this system, though. It's the Great Man Fallacy. Essentially, I think is what it's called. Where it's like, especially that's happened since like the inception of our country. Especially, you look at the revolution, where it's like, how do they teach it to you in school? They're like, George Washington led all these battles, but like, and this person and this person and this great person did this and this great person did that, but they don't talk about like all the people that like actually made it happen on the ground. Like the revolution didn't happen because a few great people, you know what I mean, like did that stuff. It was the people that actually were moving underneath that, you know what I mean? The movement of the masses essentially was what happened to. And it's like it's the same all throughout history. they just talk about like, oh, this specific person, made this happen, when in reality it was actually, like you said, like all those faceless people that
yeah. So like when you say like Washington won this battle, right? That would be the same thing as like Bezos created this company. Washington might have like dictated certain troop movements, but like the people who win battles and stuff, there's like the people who really, really win battles are people like scouts and stuff like that. They see where the enemy is. They figure all this out. We don't know the scout who figured out the left flank of the British army at fucking whatever battlefield, right? No one knows about him. But if there was, yeah, well, I'm just workers. Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, as like someone else who was also like the soldier dying, you can order anyone to just go die, right? So I'm trying to make like a specific point where like a scout has to go out, someone sends him there, but he's kind of on his own initiative. He figures out where like something is, and then he brings it back, and he's like the inventor of an army is what I'm trying to say. So like there's whatever.
I get it. No, I understand your point exactly. Is that nobody does anything alone is what you're trying to say. And why should one person get not only all the credit, but why should they be able to reap all the benefits? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess.
Nothing happens without somebody doing the labor. It's not just the idea makers, it's the labor, the ones who make the labor.
I was just trying to draw a little bit of a parallel there, that because like anyone can just go out and fucking die, right? But I was trying to say that the people who actually built Amazon, they had a much more influential role, and we'll never know a lot of their names than Jeff Bezos ever did. His influence was at the very beginning. He started selling used books online, and then he was like, well, why don't we just be like Walmart online? That's it. That's his fucking influence.
That's his contribution. Yeah.
He didn't like you can't sit Jeff Bezos down and have him. I bet he can't even really code an algorithm. He might be able to write a website.
Yeah.
Like a modern algorithm, like what they use for like doing ads and figuring out what you want on Amazon. I don't.
Yeah, I doubt he understands that. Yeah.
I don't know.
I was going to say that's beyond his pay grade, but actually, and nothing should be beyond the pay grade of somebody who's making literally thousands of dollars a second.
Yeah.
Yeah. He just bought a $500 million super yacht that has like a yacht attached to it. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. The boy got a yacht so big that it needs another yacht. Motherfucker.
He's got a yacht as a lifeboat.
Yeah. No shit.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, so what did that do for society? Let's say you bought a yacht that has a yacht for a lifeboat. What investment, like what did that do to make society better? It made his life better according to him in some way. I don't even know if I would use something like that really. Like,
yeah, I can't even imagine ever. Like, I don't have any desire. Like, what? I don't even know. Like,
after the revolution, what do we do with that? Do we like keep that? Like,
we turn it into a hospital boat.
Yeah, it's a hospital boat now, or like it's a fucking school. That's where the kids get to go. Like,
school.
Yeah, what I don't fucking know. Like, it's something that has an actual social purpose. I mean, it could be anything.
Yeah, but you could put it like in a like it could just be a museum and be like, this is like the sheer opulence of like the late capitalist overlords.
How would we invest into the growth of society under your system? And then it's like, we need a fucking yacht that has a yacht as a lifeboat. Like, come on, dude.
Yeah, exactly.
How are you going to ask that fucking question when you look at what people are using their wealth to invest in?
Well, Destiny would be like, he would just be like, well, that's whataboutism. That's whataboutism. Like, shut the fuck up.
I guess it is kind of whataboutism, but it's like.
But it's like this. Shut the fuck up. You fucking idiot nerd. Like, you're a fucking loser. Like, that's honestly, I don't even want to engage in this shit because this guy's such a fucking antisocial creep. That's all I want to say.
But
to
also, whataboutism is kind of like it would be yeah. I don't think it's really whataboutism in the way that people are using the term in like common parlance. I think is the right word.
Yeah.
It'd be like well you raped that girl, and be like, well, what about Jeff? He pissed all over the toilet seat in the public bathroom.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Like, this is actually, there's a direct parallel here.
Well, yeah,
it's
actually you got to compare the two systems,
and it's also kind of questioning, like, why are you asking this question of a socialist system when you could just ask this of the capitalist system? The fact, actually, just taking these questions and asking it of the capitalist system is how socialism came about, right?
Absolutely.
It's like yeah.
You're
so I don't think
absolutely
it's
right
whataboutism.
No, I know. I feel like that's what he would say, though.
Yeah,
I'm not
I know,
saying that
but it's just stupid.
Yeah.
just
That's why when Mike first told me about the debate, I was like, who is Destiny? And I was like, and why is Richard Wolff giving him the time of day? I was like,
he's real
like,
popular online.
I mean, yeah, Richard Wolff has also talked to, like, I don't know if you know who Hakeem is on YouTube. He's like a Marxist Leninist from Iraq, and fucking, so he gives people the time of day. He's very generous with his time. I think that's why he did it. You know, if somebody has a couple thousand followers, he's willing to engage with them. So good. I think that's the best thing Wolf can do, to be honest, because he's spreading the good word, I think. But also, yeah, fuck Destiny.
Yeah, and he's also in a position where he has to kind of watch what he says. I'll say anything, dude. I don't fucking care. I'm not worried about traps. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, like, when you ask Dr. or Professor or whatever, Richard Wolff, how much violence is acceptable to implement in your socialist system, the way he's going to answer that and the way I'm going to answer that, it's just going to have to be different, right? I'm some dipshit who works in a factory who drinks all the time. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
No one gives a fuck if I say all the violence, you know, like,
whatever is necessary. Like,
yeah.
Like, that's just the way that it is. It's whatever is necessary, just like whatever is necessary to maintain the capitalist system. That's what you're by not being opposed to the capitalist system. That's what you're implying, is that whatever violence exists now is acceptable for capitalism. So the inverse is also true. Sorry to say, you know what I mean?
Then you might say something. Maybe he would say something like, well, what we're doing is we're working with a system that we know works, and we're going to try and fix the issues that we have there, or something. I don't. But like, the problem
fix
is
the system. You can't. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, it's like you said, you can't, like you were saying, you can't fix the system. This is, if you're building a pyramid, or like this is like the core of the structure of capitalism. It's just based on violence. So you can't reform that out without destroying the entire fucking building with it.
Yeah, because if you pull out the fucking bottom of the bottom rungs to the ladder, you're gonna eventually run out of fucking support.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
In order to enforce capitalism, you have to use violence to enforce private property, right?
Period.
If you're just gonna say, like, so, yeah, you could just be like, well, we won't use violence, but we'll still have private property. You can't do it, right? The only reason private property exists in the way that it does under capitalism is because of the violence that is associated with keeping it around.
Amen, brother.
Yeah.
Amen, comrade.
Like, you could do it in a lot of ways, but specifically with housing is something I like to talk about, is that people need houses. There's tons of homeless people. If we just told them there's no more police, you can just walk into the house and live there, people would do that.
The homeless crisis
There's no
would be
private
done.
property anymore.
The homeless problem could be literally fixed in like fucking a week's time if private property was abolished. You know what I mean? Property relations were changed. Like, it's yeah.
Yeah, and the only way that you can enforce that is with violence. You can evict people. How do you evict people? You don't say, "Excuse me, you didn't pay. Will you please leave?" and they just go. You have the cops come and threaten them with being thrown in a cage for years, or getting shot or beaten or dragged out. Like, yeah, there's violence inherent in the system. So
Yeah. Come and see the violence inherent in the
Yeah.
system.
Classic.
Right? I don't know. You got anything to add, Jared? I feel like you've been pretty quiet this episode, but
that's good.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I'll just say it again because I can't believe this is even the first question. Is how much violence is acceptable? Oh man, dude.
Yeah, that's if that's what you're leading off with, you already are. I feel like that's totally in bad faith. Honestly, it's like such a loaded question,
and it's also like not introspective at all about the violence in your system.
Yeah, he's a dork, dude. Fuck him. I like honestly, like I give people the benefit of the doubt, but like I don't know, man. I guess maybe he does good work in other ways, but I don't fucking know. I'm not like I don't know a lot about Destiny.
Well, I mean, he's not.
He's not a Nazi, is why he's good, I guess.
Well, he's not. He's also not like Ben Shapiro either. Like
yeah, you know. But that's a very like no pun. Actually, all puns intended. Not a very high bar. Boom. Ben Shapiro's short.
Where's the pun? Where's the? Oh, okay.
Because
where's the pun?
Because Ben Shapiro is very short, so every bar is very low for him.
Ben Shapiro goes to Home Depot is like, yeah, everybody, we gotta buy wood from Home Depot. They're the only company that hasn't bowed down to the left.
Oh God, that shit. He bought like one plank of wood.
I'm a man. I'm a real man now.
Yeah, he bought one plank of wood from Home Depot. Or it was it Home Depot, whatever, one of those places, and then like took a picture. He's like, I bought this 25-cent plank of wood. Get out of here, dude. What are you even talking about? What I think is really funny about people like Ben Shapiro is Ben Shapiro is the type of guy who got beat up in high school by jocks.
And he like he didn't get beat enough. Is that what you're gonna say?
No. What I was gonna say is him and also Steven Crowder, who'd be like, I'm saving my virginity for my pure wife, right? They would say some shit like that, and then someone would be like, shut up, nerd, and they'd punch him a bunch of times. And then when they get on the internet and they have their little shows, they perform masculinity to like this crazy degree. So they'll sit in a room with each other smoking cigars and drinking brandy like some fucking male passengers on the Titanic or some shit. Like this fucking 1912 masculinity that they're just performing, even though they're like the nerdiest. Like, I don't know. It's really funny to me.
Yeah,
it has nothing to do with Destiny, but
at least Destiny's not doing that. That's the good thing we can say about Destiny. He's not Ben Shapiro or Steven Crowder.
Yeah, and also he's not like I don't know. I guess he's not so insecure. He throws cuck around all the time, and
well, he is a cuck for capitalism. So
he's also an open relationship. So if we want to go alt right here, we can say he's a cuck or whatever. But I'm gonna say, like, he's not so insecure. He's gonna be doing shit like that.
So good for him for that.
And going to a place and trying to get what they call democratic socialists in America elected, that's all right by me. I don't have a problem with that. It's just
a little bit more needs to be done, I think. Yeah.
He's bourgeoisie. He's reformist. He's a Menshevite.
yeah, I agree.
So anyway, we got a little bit of time still, right?
Yeah, we got a little time.
About something else.
We could talk about Can we talk about the no, I don't want to talk about that.
What did you want to talk about?
Fuck that book. No, I'm just joking. But the labor, the quote unquote labor shortages, I think that's really interesting. And I think a lot of good things are happening like really fast because of that. I'm talking about like the labor shortages in like the food industry specifically, because I just saw today already McDonald's is capitulating and saying that they're going to raise their wages. Chipotle has already capitulated, saying they're going to raise their wages and so on. And this is with a totally, I mean, it's a pretty disorganized effort, and it's already yielding some benefits from these big corporations. But
I would say it's not organized at all, right?
It's absolutely not
really
organized.
Well, it's organized on a very small scale, right? Like you have to have everyone at your Chipotle quit before they start paying attention.
Right, but that's happening. So that's happening on like a very like localized scale. Like these these restaurant workers are saying this is bullshit. We're fucking on our feet 10 hours a day. Some of these kids are like 18 years old. Like, so like they'll have like shift leaders and managers will be there a couple years. They say somebody will get hired, they quit in the next day. So like, because the job is so shitty, you get treated like shit all day. You know what I mean? And you make like $10 an hour, $8 an hour, some parts of the country. So these people are like fed up and they're taking it into their own hands. They're all quitting.
And when I used to work in service, you weren't full time either. You didn't really get a lot of the benefits that full time gives you. And
yeah. And even if you are quote unquote full time, they'll cut you off. Your fucking boss will cut you off right before. They'll be like, oh, you got if full time where I live is 32 hours, they'll give you fucking 31 hours, you know what I'm saying? Or 39 hours. Like,
when I worked in service, what they like to do at the grocery store I worked at, which was a union store too, is it was like 32 hours for
to get benefits,
like 2 months or whatever. If you work 32 hours a week for 2 or 3 months or something like that, then they'd have to hire you on as full time. So they just work you 40 hours for like 2.5 months, and then for like 2 weeks they'd fuck you over and not give you.
Imagine if there was an actual organized like something of like this.
Yeah, I think if the corporations like in question here don't meet any of these demands, which I don't think they're going to meet them fast enough, because like for instance, McDonald's said by 2024 all of their stores are going to have $15 an hour. By 2024 we're going to need fucking $25 an hour. Fuck out of here, bro.
By 2024 we're going to go up to like by 2024 the minimum wage would probably have to be $15 anyway.
It is that they're already that's what that's their plan.
Yeah, actually $15 an hour is already pretty. It's fucking not good.
That's an abysmal wage, honestly. So what's going to happen? I think this is what I'm guessing is that they're going to hire these people on. They're not going to get enough hours, and then we're going to see maybe, hopefully, if there's people on the left agitating towards it, we're going to see some real like labor, more organized militant labor emerge from these service workers, and I think that's ultimately a good thing.
Here's the fucking fear that I have about this is that it's all going to be there's something that's growing a lot and is gaining a lot of popularity, which used to be popular in like 1810, which they're calling now the gig economy, which is where you show up somewhere and then they just pick out the workers they need. Now unions formed and socialists fought against that, and they fought for the actually hiring people and have some type of right. But this is coming back now, and
it's not coming back, it's back.
It's
bro.
back. Yeah,
I'm part of the gig economy, bro. Like, I understand. I know
in DoorDash but also even outside of that, they have apps where you can just work. I forget what they're called. You can go work in a warehouse for a day.
Yeah.
Like it's just like, this is the stuff that we already supposedly won, and now it's
gone. It's all gone. They peeled
everything.
Everything
people
back.
look at it as though it's a good thing. It was like, oh, now I have the freedom to not have a job, like a real job.
I have the freedom to not have a stable job. Yeah, that's fucking amazing, bro.
It's like that's how it used to work too.
Yeah. Do you have any predictions or like feelings about this shit, Jared? About these labor shortages? Because we're me and you are in the same industry, and it's this industry. So I don't know if you have anything you want to add. The restaurant industry.
I mean, I think we need to kind of do it needs to be a more organized effort. We need to kind of create groups, maybe in these in the service industry. Start pushing for more militant like hazard pay again essentially the same stuff that we were pushing for a year ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The same stuff we were pushing for 100 years ago.
Yeah, so nothing has changed, but everything is there's some new shit happening, but nothing has really changed. Yeah. But I'm like so inspired by it though. Like, I think it's fucking awesome that these people are like they're just shutting down shop, bro. Like, fuck this.
Yeah, you'll also see a lot of pictures where at first it was just like, McDonald's is closed, we have no workers, and then later on I don't know how widespread it is, but I saw the one picture that you sent me, which was like, look up general strike, and then I saw
Yeah.
a couple other ones where they were talking about the same thing. It's like, they don't pay us a living wage, so we all quit.
Yeah.
Right. So maybe this will be something that
We're seeing the nucleus here of something
Yeah.
bigger, hopefully.
And yeah, the idea is that these people, the internet inspires, these posts on the internet inspire more people to do the same thing, and then that inspires people to create an actual labor movement in the United States again, like we
Yeah.
used to have.
Yeah, because I was like pretty fucking bummed about the thing, the union effort in Amazon in Alabama,
yeah.
But if you think about it, like, not even, you don't have to think about it, you just look at it. The people who make up the majority of the economy now are people in the service sector, and that's the sector right now that is we're seeing the shortages in, because so many people were kicked out of their jobs because of the pandemic, and then they got a taste of dignity by getting these extra $600 and the extra $300, and now they go back to their jobs making fucking pennies on the dollar and getting treated like shit by these fucking people. Don't want to wear masks, yelling at them about where's their fucking food, all this type of bullshit. And they're like, you know what, fuck this.
And,
like they'd rather go back to being, they'd rather be broke than put up with that shit. And it's like, yeah, I don't fucking blame you, dude.
I'm actually usually a pessimist, and I've actually had a pessimistic attitude talking to you about this before, Mike. But
yeah,
I as you know, I don't know if everyone who watches this, all 6 of you, will know, I spend a lot of time on reactionary corners of the internet, and 4chan poll is basically a hard right-wing Nazi board for the most part, with some NEETs, what they're called,
Yeah.
in education, employment, or training. But this is actually also taken off there, where you just have people, they're like, well, wait, that's actually bullshit. Why should I have to fucking slave away? And so
Yeah,
this is actually going to those elements, and
which is good, but also that's kind of scary. But hopefully they can.
No. They're not saying it's not reactionary. It's actually like labor focused.
Okay, yeah. Well, yeah, but I'm saying that's bad if you mix labor with reactionary ideas about race and gender, is what I'm saying.
Yeah,
So,
I was the point that I was making though is that it's kind of like even raising the so it's raising the class consciousness and what.
Yes,
but these people aren't. See, if you're raising the class consciousness in hardcore fascists, I would agree that's bad. But a lot of these people are just like they're
just pissed because they can't get any pussy. Yeah, it happens.
Yeah, and so if you actually make them pissed because they're being taken advantage of in the capitalist system, and there's some potential there.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think there's not potential there at all. I just think that you got to be weary, like of react. Yeah, you have to be. I'm weary of that, but I'm glad to hear that. You know what I mean? Because I don't spend any time in those corners of the internet, because
dude, they'll max out threads, and someone will be like, well, those people don't deserve it. You know what's going to happen is that if they get paid $17 an hour, then people who are middle class, or that old fucking tired thing, people who are middle class, they're going to be like, wait, you get paid $17 an hour for flipping a burger. I'm going to quit my desk job where I work at a computer from home all day and go flip burgers.
Nobody's going to do that. Right. Why? Here's
I'm going to go to a shittier job that sucks more because they get paid the same as me. No,
it's not going to happen. Well, here's what's going to happen is you're going to agitate your fucking job and say, how come I'm or you know what I mean? Like, how come I'm only making as much as a worthless fucking burger flipper? Which, like, as someone who's been in the restaurant industry for like the majority of my adult life, like, that shit gets under my skin so bad, bro. Because I challenge anyone who says that
to go work in a kitchen.
Go work in a fucking kitchen at the bottom. Like, start off washing some fucking dishes. Do that for 12 hours, 4 days in a row. Tell me how fucking easy that job is, you fucking scum. But like, come on.
Also, I want to throw this out there, is that the people who are going to be like, wow, people who work in kitchens are making just as much as me, this is complete fucking dog shit. That's a minority of people, dude. Like, most people don't think like that. Absolutely. Most people aren't like this is like a very petty these are
It's
these are the
petty, but
people like Trump. We're like
yeah, absolutely.
their ego is attached to their work and the fact they make $1 more than you. So if you fucking are at their level, it's gonna hurt their ego. But most people aren't just living their lives based on their completely egocentric fucking view of reality. Dude, if I learned that someone who's working at McDonald's is making as much as I'm making, that's not going to make me angry at all in any fucking way, dude.
I'd be like, tight. Can you fucking pay your bills now? Not even like that. Like, let's say you're not even you don't even have to be a socialist to understand why it's good for someone at McDonald's to be paid enough to buy one fucking value meal an hour. You know why it's good? It's because if somebody's getting paid enough to actually spend money, it's good for the economy. Even like it's good for the capitalist economy for people to have enough money to buy commodities because it helps other people maintain their position.
Even without bringing in capitalism, it's just good that someone else that was in a bad position is now in a better position.
Well, I was saying if you wanted to look at it through an economic
I know,
lens,
but like people aren't even like this whole thing where it's like, well, middle class people are going to feel like they are.
First thing I want to say is what fucking middle class people, because there's not that fucking many of them
there's
left.
Like none, yeah.
So like fuck if yeah.
Well, I guess it kind of depends. I was watching some stupid fucking, I don't know, it was some stupid debate, but Sargon of Akkad was one of the participants.
Yeah.
And he was like, well, if the capitalist system makes 50% of the people in the society middle class, then it must be working. And I was thinking, dude, by definition, right?
It's never worked.
By definition, the middle class is just like in between the extremely poor and the extremely rich. They're going to be, by definition, they're going to be the majority of society.
Oh yeah. I got
you. You're fucking so stupid when you make that point. By definition, the middle class is going to be most of society.
Yeah.
It doesn't say anything about their living standards to say they're middle class.
Well, yeah, it's because middle class isn't a real fucking class. It's some shit that was invented by, I don't know.
It's
liberals.
True. Yeah, it wasn't. I always, it's the working class. Middle class, yeah, then they have like lower middle class, upper middle class. It's all just like.
Well, when I was growing up, everybody I knew, their parents would be like, yeah, we're lower middle class because then you don't or like we're upper middle class. Nobody's actually rich and nobody's actually poor when you have the middle class, because then you just say, I'm lower middle class. You're not working class, you're not rich, you're not bourgeoisie, you're just middle class. You're just an average Joe. You know what I mean?
That's the thing, is that everyone is middle class, dude.
Yeah.
If you ask them.
Yes, that's what I mean. That's what I'm getting at. Yeah.
Well, the truth is that everyone is working class for the most part, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No. Yeah. Yeah.
That's what. Yeah, but I'm saying that's the folk knowledge is that everyone's middle class, because people would be like, well, what about the middle class? And it's like, dude, you're not like, even by like American definition, most of these people pissed about the middle class aren't even fucking middle class. They're making like $40,000 a year. That's not even in the middle tier of like the median. Like if you like break down how much wealth is in America, like everyone should be making like $80,000 a year would be like some kind of middle class. That'd be like the middle ground. Like nobody's making that, dude. People are making that.
That reminds me of something really fucking funny that happened to me. I was working I worked for like 2 weeks at this fucking factory that made like paper products, and my job, I was a temp there for a while. My job was like we didn't lick the envelopes because that was gross. We took a glue stick. I took a glue stick and I like glued envelopes shut all day, right? And I was talking to some of the people at lunch break that I work with, and we were talking about the owners of the factory, and she said to me, "Oh no, yeah, these people." So we were talking about something, and I was like, "Oh, I didn't know they were like that." And she's like, "No, yeah, they're real working class." I was like, the people who own the factory are working class. Yikes!
People. That's what we were talking about this the other day. Like the definitions of the way people define things is so weird. Like so much can get lost in translation, man.
Yeah, like so by definition, the owner of the factory is not working class.
Right.
Like, Yeah.
They literally cannot be working class
Yeah,
if they own a
they're
fucking factory.
by definition capitalists.
Yeah,
Or like,
they make money off of other people's labor. Yeah.
yeah, and they own they have bought and own the means of production, and they use other people's labor to extract wealth. They're capitalists. The same thing happens when you talk to people. Some fucking idiot making sandwiches at Subway, and he'll be like, "Yeah, I'm a capitalist." No, you aren't, dude. You fucking you're making me a cold cut trio, dude. You're not a capitalist. like, no, I'm a capitalist, dude. Ben Shapiro, I listen to him. I believe what he says. It's like, no, dude, you're not a capitalist.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know why.
I'm not a capitalist. Also, can I get the cheesy bread?
Yeah, the Italian 5 cheese bread, please.
Italian herbs and cheese.
Yeah. But hey, guys, this has been fun. Good episode. I have to go to work so I can keep living.
Yeah.